Hey there everyone, welcome back to another perfect pairing with me. It's my birthday month, so I thought I would share 2 cards from one video. I have 3 perfect techniques and elements you need to make a stunning birthday card. Before we get into today's project, make sure you subscribe to the Altenew channel for more card making and paper crafting tutorials. My Perfect Pairings with Jaycee series explores crafting techniques that effortlessly blend sure-to-love new releases and well-loved Altenew favorites. If you love these kinds of crafty tutorials, hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of my videos airing on the 2nd and 4th Sunday. The first item I'm starting with is the Zero Waste Autumn Leaves die. This is new for October 2024. The reason I chose this die set is because it suits a lot more people, so no matter who you're making this card for, your recipient is sure to love it. And this Zero Waste die fits perfectly on an A2 sized card front. Before I do any die cutting, I'm grabbing a plain white piece of cardstock cut to A2, that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and this will be the main panel I cut and color. I'm going to pull out my 7.5 inch square sticky mat grid, and this will hold my cardstock as I ink blend. In my Altenew set of inks, I'm grabbing my lightest ink first, and that's going to be maple yellow, and I'll use a large Altenew ink blending brush to apply a heavily saturated amount of maple yellow to the bottom fourth or so of my card panel. I'm not so worried about getting this very smooth. What I want instead is a high saturation of color throughout this panel. The next color I'll blend into this area of my panel is burnt red. After maple yellow and burnt red, I'm looking for a more jewel-toned purple. I think Cosmic Berry will work really well right here in this area of my panel. Here's that layer of Cosmic Berry. The second to last color I want to grab is a jewel toned blue. And speaking of jewel toned, I'll pick up Sapphire, fresh dye ink, and blend that into this narrow area of my panel. Then finally on this last section up top, I'll use green opal, fresh dye ink, and just like the other inks, I'm putting an intense layer of this color on the remaining white piece of my cardstock. I'm not going to remove my panel from my sticky mat grid just yet. I want to do a little bit of a distressing technique on this, so I just have a regular acrylic block. To it, I've added a little bit of water, and then with an Altenew fine-tipped brush with no ink on it, I'm going to add splatter to this, and this will create a water-bleached effect on this panel. And I think it's going to add a lot of texture to this set of cards that I'm making. You'll see I'm being pretty liberal with how much water I'm applying to this panel. I'm going to leave my panel on my sticky mat grid to let it dry flat. You'll see that letting this dry has really brightened up the bleach effect of this panel. So now I'm removing this from my sticky mat grid. Then I can bring in my Autumn Leaves Zero Waste die and center it on this panel. After I've run this through my die cutting machine, here's the end result. And then I can pop out all of these little pieces and save them in a little trinket bowl. So here's my bowl of all of my positive pieces. I'll set that aside for my second card. And right now I'll focus on just the negative space of the Autumn Leaves die. And I still want to use this die itself to create another element that complements my background panel. I have cut down and reduced a piece of Altenew's brushed gold cardstock, and I will also center the die on top of this panel. And instead of running this whole thing through my die cutting machine in the normal die cutting sandwich, I'm going to follow my embossing sandwich in my Spellbinders platform. So that means I need the A platform base, B platform top, and then I'll use the Autumn Leaves die with its cut side up, the E embossing mat, and then the D adapter plate. The end result of that sandwich is this really textured piece of foiled cardstock. And then what I can do with my ink blended jewel tone negative piece is align it to the openings underneath it. And I love how easy it is to create this fake overlay with the negative piece and embossing the positive piece so that it all looks like one complete panel. Before I glue down my jewel-toned negative panel to the foiled cardstock, I have slightly reduced the gold foil just by a little less than 1/8 of an inch on all sides so that nothing peeps out from underneath my ink blended panel. And I'll just use a liquid adhesive to glue my ink blended panel to the gold foil cardstock. And after gluing down the negative piece to my gold foil cardstock, I've got this faux inlay panel already glued to a folded note card base, and now it's ready for a very simple sentiment. Since there's already a lot going on this card front, I want to keep the sentiment very simple, and I just love the way that the Essential Sentiments duo works. So this is the die set and the hot foil plate set, and you'll see that the die set cuts out little sentiment banners for each of these sentiments on this hot foil plate. And you can see, of course, there's a happy birthday sentiment, which I have already gold foiled onto white cardstock for. To help this sentiment banner stand out just a little bit more, I've cut a little piece from the Essential Sentiments die set from brushed gold cardstock, and with a little piece of foam adhesive, I created this raised offset drop shadow. And now I feel like this helps bring your focus to the banner in the middle of the panel. And then once I've glued my sentiment banner to the center of my cardstock base, that finishes this really simple design for a birthday card. And I've incorporated 3 elements just into this first card. There's a nice textural element from the autumn leaves inlay that's done with the brushed gold cardstock. I have my focal point, which is my sentiment. And then I've picked a very simple yet defined color palette. So I've chosen my jewel tone set of inks. And to help bring some structure into this very interesting background, I've balanced that with some very clear and defined areas of color. So that's my striped yellow, burnt red, cosmic berry, sapphire, and green opal layers. So like I mentioned earlier, I have all of the positive pieces that come with this zero waste cover die. And I'll work in those pieces to incorporate yet another simple birthday card design with 3 perfect design elements. So let's work on the positive pieces that we cut from Zero Waste Autumn Leaves die. Now I know I won't need all of these elements found in my little trinket bowl here, but I will attempt to use a lot of these larger pieces. And the great thing is I've already colored them using the ink blending technique and a little bit of water bleaching. So now we can create some really interesting pairings with the leaves and a one-of-a-kind arrangement overall. Before I get too invested in the arrangement of these leaves, I want to pick another focal point besides one of the Essential Sentiments banner. So I have another gold foiled sentiment die cut from white cardstock, just as before. And I've been waiting for the right time to use this Altenew Classic Alphabet die set. This is a pretty large die set at 9.5 by 14. And the letters in this die set are roughly 2 inches high, so they're sure to take center stage on your card front. And I love the typeface of this die set. I think it's pretty classic and timeless, and it'll suit other monogram cards. I cut the J letter because obviously my name is Jaycee, and I cut white cardstock 4 times for a stack of J's, as you see on the left. And then on the right I have a brushed gold piece that I will do another drop shadow with, so that I end up with this. I thought about doing this burst arrangement with the letter J, but I'm kind of thinking that a wreath might look a little bit better. So let's go ahead and do that. One of my favorite neutral cardstocks is Sand Dunes, right here. And what I love about Sand Dunes in particular is that it is lighter than a craft colored cardstock, but it's not too yellowy, not too orange, not too pink for a great neutral. So lighter than craft, but still works with any sort of tonality. So I have a lot of warm colors here in the jewel tone palette. And I think these colors complement my background cardstock, but also gives just enough contrast for the white letter J that I have on top. I'm sticking my panel to my sticky matte grid just to keep everything in place as I'm crafting. Since I already have this fresh dye ink pad out, I'm going to use it as a template for a circle. Then I'll use my pencil to lightly trace around the fresh dye ink pad. And the glue that I like to use dries tacky. So I'm actually just going to apply a ring of glue on top of my pencil outline. And with these positive die cuts, I'll just grab them sort of at random and start gluing them to the glued outline. I am picking a direction of the leaves. I think it just looks a little bit neater when the leaves sort of have a direction on your wreath. Once I have the larger die cuts down to create some structure to this wreath, then I can start moving on to smaller and smaller elements to really fill in this wreath and to use all of my positive pieces that I cut from the autumn leaves die. And this is my arrangement after using the majority of the pieces found in Zero Waste Autumn Leaves die. I didn't use all of the die cut dots, but of course they're easy embellishments for you in future projects. And now my monogram J can nestle easily into the center of that wreath. Before I foam mount my monogram letter J, I'm going to add a lot of white splatter on top of my Sand Dunes cardstock as well as my wreath arrangement. So I'm using pure white ink spray as I always do, and a fine tipped water brush from Altenew, and I'm adding an array of splatter throughout the whole panel. My camera cut out, but that's okay because I was nearly finished with this card. After adding the pure white ink spray splatters, then I foam mounted my letter J monogram to the center of the wreath, and then I also glued down the Essential Sentiments foiled sentiment to the bottom of the wreath for this really classic look. And what I really like about this card in particular is that you can always swap out one of the sentiments on the bottom for another occasion, or you can stamp it. But I thought the gold foil also matched the drop shadow found in the letter J, so it ties everything together. And to recap, these are 3 perfect elements that I think every handmade birthday card needs. So that's some texture, and you can find that on the leaves, on the positive die cuts from Zero Waste Autumn Leaves die set. A clear and distinct focal point, so I think that's the monogram letter J, paired slightly with the sentiment banner found at the bottom. And then of course a very definite color palette. Luckily we were able to stretch our color palette, our jewel tone color palette, between 2 cards, but I added in Sand Dunes to this card to help raise up the monogram letter J, as well as the foiled sentiment banner found at the bottom. If you've got an October birthday, happy birthday, but also let me know in the comments which card you would rather receive on your birthday, the faux die cut inlay card or the monogram wreath. My series encourages you to shop your existing Altenew stash and rekindle their love with newer releases. Perfect Pairings with Jaycee airs on the Altenew channel every 2nd and 4th Sunday of the month. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for tuning in to this perfect pairing episode with me, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.